Okay, so picking up where we left off, we're going to go ahead and go on next to Joe. Joseph. Double click. Okay, I think everybody's getting this same result for a reason. Okay. So Joseph, we're getting similar things going on here that we've seen in the past, which is stuff like the ball kind of traveling in these arcs. It kind of slows down before it gets there, kind of eases in before that contact, giving it sort of this impression that it has a mind of its own. And then we're also getting some like kind of strange curves that it's going on. So we get sort of see how it kind of does that, like it kind of dips down and then goes across. And so a lot of that is just from not really putting too much effort into the curves and too much detail into how the curves change, and how the tangents kind of go in and out of one another. So let's go ahead and so you'll see some of that from some of the previous videos. A lot of that's just similar things, and we'll actually talk about that a little bit more in the next videos, or in a later video I'm going to record that kind of walks us through how to improve that. Emily. Okay. So we got a couple spots here too where the speed is a touch inconsistent. We'll see this here. Let me open it up in QuickTime. You'll see that well, in this first hit here, where the ball kind of it's traveling at one speed, and then it hits this paddle, and then it kind of slows down on its path to the wall, and then it speeds back up again. And really, that's just the spacing of the keyframes. So yeah, we'll kind of see some examples of this here in a little bit. Or not examples of how to sort of tweak this a bit. And you got a couple of those, but otherwise it's working relatively well. And it's mainly just really slight timing issues where the ball kind of speeds up or slows down in different areas. Lindsay, open with time. So if we watch this, it doesn't really go off the screen. It does on their side. I don't know. Feels like maybe that should have been a point for this side. I'm just picking, you know. I think you could have toyed a little bit with how the paddles move up and down. They kind of sort of hit this wall and change at the same time. So how they're both moving down, and they both start moving up. And I think just kind of sort of shifting some of the let's put it together here. Forward, yeah. So they both change directions at the same keyframe. Again, change directions at the same keyframe. And so it kind of feels like they're moving together a little bit too much right there. You probably could have just offset that just a little bit and kind of get a little bit more of that feeling. Also, they change directions pretty sharply, which isn't totally bad, but it feels like they change directions sharply every time they change directions. So I kind of think of what it is that would be controlling that. Would it move it a little bit more naturally? Maybe a little less of a sharp change in direction. But otherwise, it's looking really good. It's kind of a neat little way of ending it there. Okay, Melanie. Let's watch this. Okay, so there's a couple of issues here as well in the way the speed changes in a few spots. So if we watch it again, yeah, it kind of speeds up in some spots and kind of slows down in others. So that's just kind of a going back and shifting keyframes to kind of make that timing work the way uh, that it would seem more consistent throughout. And again, I'm not saying constant throughout. It doesn't have to stay at constant speed. It just needs to seem like um, the motion isn't coming from some mysterious energy somewhere. So overall, it's looking all right. Nick. I think the paddles are moving a little drifty. Like they don't really feel like they're that eager to catch the ball. They're just kind of moseying around. But the other thing is this kind of also has a little bit of that changing speeds throughout. So as we're moving, let's watch it here. Like right now, it's moving at this pace. Kind of slows down right there at the half line. Kind of speeds up in a few places. So let me see. Sorry, it's a phone. So we get a little bit like speeds up there just a little bit, and just a couple little things here where just the timing just kind of changes a little bit throughout it. So yeah, yeah, right there's the big one I noticed is where it kind of speeds up at the half court mark. Traveling that speeds up a little bit. You also see it here. It's going kind of fast, and it kind of slows down at the half court mark. So those are just a couple little things that you can kind of tweak around with to kind of make sure the speed is a little bit more consistent. And I think also adding a little bit more liveliness to the paddles wouldn't hurt. JRD. I don't know who this is. So um, okay. So now we're watching the play blast, not the video. But this may be an older play blast, so I probably shouldn't judge it completely on this one. Let's go see if we can get one of these others to play. Let's see how it plays an AVI. Well, I guess this one's 9 kilobytes. I'm pretty sure it's going to be short. Okay. So this one just seems to want to repeat that first 2 seconds over and over again. So I'm not exactly sure about that. So if we look at this one, which is the only one that seems to be working completely, it's doing pretty good. A couple little hitches here and there. The paddles seem a little lethargic. They're not really doing very much. They're just kind of drifting around a little bit. So I think that would definitely be something I would improve on this. The motion of the ball is not bad, with the exception of that little hitch right here. Whatever that is that's happening right there. And so So you want to fix that. I think you would want to make, and the timing of the ball actually seems pretty good. It's kind of consistent. But I think going in there and kind of giving these a little bit more life and sort of fixing whatever the little hitch is there, I'm guessing it's a couple of keyframes that are really close to each other. So otherwise, this is looking pretty good. I have no idea who it is, but I guess I'll comb um, through the files until I figure out whose initials JRD could be. Let's see, Sarah. I think this is a short of this little bitty spot at the beginning where it kind of leaves kind of slow and then kind of picks up speed right here. Other than that, the timing seems to be pretty consistent. The biggest problem with it for me is I think the paddles seem to be a little, again, kind of lethargic. They're just kind of drifting a little. This one barely moves much at all. So I think increasing that a little bit, which I get it. Sometimes I would play that way as well. You just kind of leave your paddle there and wait for it to come to you, and then if you just have to move it a little bit. Um, but this one just kind of slowly crawls down the screen too. So I think having a little bit more liveliness to those would really help to kind of make it feel a little bit more um, animated and energetic. So I like that it kind of makes one last dive at it there at the end though. Seth. Okay. Hmm. This one's looking pretty good. I think this is a very nitpicky comment, but I think some of the movement of the paddles could be just a little bit sharper. Like they all kind of move, um, kind of in these like long sweepy motions. I think just having a little bit more of this sort of like twitchiness here and there would make it feel a bit more natural. This feels a little bit mechanical, but it's got quite a bit of movement in it. So some of that may actually just be sort of sharpening up some of the tangents on that to make it kind of feel like it stops and then starts again a little bit quicker. That's again very nitpicky. The ball's moving really well, really pretty consistent. The speed doesn't really feel like it changes too terribly much. It maybe changes a little bit right there before that last, like it hits the ground and then kind of pops up a little faster on that last hit where the paddle finally misses it. Right there, it kind of feels like it speeds up just a touch. But otherwise, this is looking pretty good. Shay. Let's see. That's a pretty neat ending. I think again the timing still is a little bit off in a few spots. Like at the beginning here, that second bounce, like this is coming in at a pretty good speed, and then it kind of feels like it slows down just a little bit, and then speeds back up again. So I think that could still be tweaked just a little bit right through there, and it still may be getting just a touch fast right here at the end when it does all of this. So I mean, maybe if you just had a few more frames in between there. Um, the only other little thing I would say is when it ricochets off the ceiling here, remember we talked about the angle that an object hits at is the same angle it will come off at. So it's kind of traveling upward at this direction, so really it should bounce back this way at that angle. I would think instead it kind of comes back this way, and so unless you had something like at an angle here, that's really sort of the wrong angle for it to be bouncing off at. But otherwise I think it's working pretty well, and I think the little effect of the explosion looks really good. So go Good work. I'm actually about to run out of time on this video, so we'll pick it up on the next one.